Hi, I'm Maggie Ostara, and I'm delighted that you're here. Welcome back to my channel. I'm a human design and quantum human design expert and the creator of the 8 Pillars of Feminine Sovereignty. Today, we're going to be talking about the myths of the generator and how we're going to bust some of those myths, because I know that they can tend to really hold people back a lot. So let's go ahead and get started. Generators are designed to dance with the flow of life through response. The sacral, just the red square down at the bottom of the chart, right? It's in the belly, is what makes us generators. So I'm a pure generator, and manifesting generators have this also. So whether you're a pure generator or a manifesting generator, you have that red square colored in on your chart, and that having that defined sacral is what makes you a generator, whatever your type is. And so this is the most powerful engine in the chart. It has long-term sustainable energy, provided that we are taking care of ourselves and we're living in alignment with our design. But it does work best through response. And so here it's wait to respond is our strategy. Wait to respond. Okay. And a lot of times people get confused about this waiting piece. Now, there's kind of different facets to the waiting piece. When I first heard this, I was like, what does that mean to wait to respond? And what do I respond to? And how do I even know? And so when I decided to get serious about human design, the first thing I did was I stopped initiating, because I'd been initiating my whole life. I'm an Aries sun. I thought that was my job. Okay, so then I learned human design. I was like, okay, let me figure this out. So I stopped initiating. And what I realized pretty fast was there were lots of things for me to respond to. The wait was helpful because it helped me to stop initiating, right? Help stop from just going for it. Like I'd get an idea and I'd go for it. I'd get an idea and I'd go for it, right? And a lot of times it didn't work out all that well because I wasn't really paying attention. And I didn't, before I had human design, I didn't have a way to know, was this something for me to act on or not? I didn't understand about my sacral authority. So that, that direction can lead to a lot of burnout though. So for me, the wait was really helpful because the wait was kind of like pause, pay attention, see what's going on around you. So rather than just being in my own head and making up stuff in my head and then throwing it out there in the world and seeing what happened with it, right? It was like, oh, let me be a little more responsive. Let me tune in a little bit more. Let me be seeing what is showing up in my reality that could be some kind of a sign or guidance from me from that flow of life. So the wait can be really good for you if you've had that process. You have that history of really initiating a lot, because a lot of us have had that history of just initiate. I mean, that was definitely the way that I was brought up and that I understood this is how you become successful in life, is you make stuff happen, right? So I had to really learn how to wait initially. So if you have a habit of initiating, it is good to wait, but realize that the waiting is really about turning the lens on initiating. And a lot of times when I talk to people, the other side of this is sometimes they've been sitting and waiting for years for something to respond to. And I'm like, oh my gosh, why have you been waiting for years? You don't have to wait for years. Not as a generator. You got stuff to respond to all the time. The thing is that there is an art to learning what it is that I'm here to respond to, right? What is something that's for me? And there is an art to learning how to work with your sacral authority. So there is that. There's a learning curve with that, which is why I teach the Sacral Skills Lab inside of my Quantum Retreat Center. It's why I do sacral sessions with people on a regular basis, because it does take some time for us to get in touch with our sacral authority and for us to learn how to work with our strategy. But I can't tell you the number of people I've talked to who are generators who are like, yeah, I don't know. I don't use my strategy. I don't really know how to do that. That sacral thing. I don't know. Sometimes I think it's there. Sometimes I think it's not. Sometimes it's led me astray. It's just really like taking the time, giving the energy to learning how to respond and how to use your sacral authority is so worth it. It's so worth it. It will dramatically change your life. But it doesn't mean you have to sit on the sofa for years waiting for something to respond to. Don't do that. Okay. Now, the other part of waiting that I do want to acknowledge is that with generators, we have a tendency to have what's called a stair-step way of learning. And so we can get engaged with something. Ooh, I'm excited because we love to learn, most of us, right? We love to learn. We love to create. We really love to engage with life, all of those things. But then sometimes we'll hit a plateau. And we can get frustrated on the plateau. And we can be like, this isn't working anymore. Because you got all this energy, right? This isn't working anymore. What am I going to do next? I'm going to jump ship and I'm going to go do something else, right? When sometimes it's actually important for us to wait. It's important for us to wait because whatever it is that we want, that we're imagining, that we're putting our creative energy into, might not be ready yet. Like there's a lot of conditions in the outer world, people, other developments, other situations, right? There's a lot of different elements, a lot of pieces that need to get put together until it's the right time for something. So sometimes you have to wait because this thing that you're working towards, it's not the right time yet. And you may not know what the right time is. I mean, your sacral authority will help you determine that. But you don't necessarily know what the time is. So sometimes you do have to wait. Sometimes you have to wait for everything to kind of come into alignment. Sometimes you have to wait for yourself to become ready for the thing. You're in the process of growing yourself. You want it, you desire it, but are you ready for it? Right? You might not be. You might still be growing inside of yourself to become the person who can actually experience the thing that you want. And so you have to wait for that. Right? Rather than going out and trying to make it happen in the outer world, sometimes there's a waiting that happens because there's an integration period. Sometimes there's a settling that happens, right? So there are times when waiting is important. It's just that not that you have to sit and not do anything because generators, oh my gosh, we're so creative. We so want to, create things and engage with life. And, we like to work. We like to be busy and doing things, right? That's that creative energy that we have with the sacral. Now, I will say that anybody can burn out and anybody can be disaffected, even if you're a generator type, right? But if you are being on purpose in your life, if you are taking good care of yourself, you're going to have a lot of creative energy because that sacral energy is primary life force energy. It is the essence of creativity, right? So we want to be able to use it and to express it. And then the third myth that I want to really kind of bust here is that generators can never initiate. So generators can initiate when they enter into something through response. When they enter into something through response. So the key thing with strategy is how we enter into something. It doesn't mean we always have to do that thing for every single, action that we take, right? So it doesn't mean that you have to wait to respond to every single thing. So, for example, I've told this story before. You might have heard it if you've been watching my videos. Because when I was looking at what does response mean and what does it mean for my life, I went back and did kind of a review for myself around, when was I responding and when was I initiating? Because I always had this idea of myself as an initiator, somebody who initiated stuff all the time. So I went back and I looked through it because I was like, well, things have worked out well for me at different times. And I realized, because I thought, well, I initiated going to graduate school, right? And then I thought about it and I was like, actually, that's not true. Well, I did, but first I had 3 different professors approach me when I was an undergrad and said to me, have you thought about going to graduate school? You'd be a really great professor. You're really good at this. You're obviously a natural teacher. It'd be awesome for you to go to graduate school. Have you thought about it? And I responded to what they said, because initially my dad was a professor and I was like, I'm not going to go be a professor. My dad's a professor. Oh God. Right? I'm not going to go do this thing that my dad did. So that was my attitude, right? But by the time the 3rd professor came and said that to me, and the job market was really contracted at that point, and But people said to me, they were all like, you would get a job. Maggie, you would get a job. And I was like, And by the time the third person came around, I started getting, I didn't know about sacral, right? But I started getting, yeah, I think that feels right to me. I think that feels right to me. And then I initiated going to graduate school, right? Then I looked around, decided, where I wanted to apply, did my applications, did all of that stuff, and decided where I was going to go, right? But I did that after I responded. So I entered into the whole project of becoming a professor, of going to graduate school through response, which I had not really thought about. I always thought I had initiated it, right? So this is something you can look at for yourself too, as you go back through your life and be like, well, when did I initiate and when was I responding and how did these things work out for me? Because you don't want to be hamstrung by thinking that, okay, I entered into this through response and now I have to wait for more things to respond to, right? Because once I decided to go to graduate school, what was I going to wait for, right? I had to initiate. I had to go out and look at graduate schools, right? I had to do that. Otherwise, what was going to happen? So it's very dynamic in that way. And I want my generators out there to realize that, yes, you can initiate, but you need to enter in through response, because your sacral and your sacral authority will protect you from engaging with things that either you don't have energy for, the people who are involved are actually not going to show up the way that they said they were going to. You're going to burn out by doing it because you're going to lose energy halfway through. The project is going to fold and you can't see it from where you are, right? There's all these ways that your sacral authority is going to protect you. So you really want to use these superpowers that you have as a generator to make sure that you're making the right decisions, that you're entering into things through response, that when you do get into an initiatory phase, that you are doing it at the right time in the right situation. Because when you do that, you have so much wind under your wings, right? You have all this cosmic energy that is supporting you because your sacral is going, and then you don't have to use so much of your own energy to move forward. So just remember that you do not have to wait forever to respond. There's probably lots of things that you can respond to right away, that you can initiate once you enter into things through response, and that yes, there are times when you need to wait because either conditions are getting ready or you're getting ready. And so you want to build your ability to discern, is it the time for me to wait? Is there something I can respond to right away? Can I enter into this through response? Is this the right time to initiate? And the last piece I'll say here, which isn't about busting a myth, but it's a piece of wisdom that I have learned over the course of my life experience with human design, which is that you want to pay attention to, like, let's say you entered into something through response and then you started to initiate. You want to notice if your energy drops, right? If all of a sudden you're like, wow, I'm not feeling that strong desire to move forward anymore. I'm, working on something and I can feel like my energy is really dropping, right? Pay attention to that, because that's your sacral kind of going, and that's a good time to wait a bit and be like, okay, what's going on? What do I need to learn? What do I need to pay attention to? Have conditions changed? Do I need to rest? Because, even as generators, we need to rest, right? Do I need to rest? Do I need to do something else for a little while? Do I need some more input, before I move forward? Like, what is it that needs to happen? And then seeing what you have to respond to. At that point, because it may need that you need to back up a little bit, you need to wait a little bit, you need to ask some generative questions so that the flow of life knows, hey, I'm asking for some advice, I'm asking for some guidance here. And then you can see what comes to you that you get to respond to. So it becomes very dynamic when you're working actively with that flow of life. And it's here to really support you. It has its hands on your back. You know that you're provided for. And you just need to be in a dynamic relationship with it. And then you will be able to really, really flourish as a generator. Okay, many blessings. Much love. Bye for now.